the first few. Great, everyone. So now we have the International Women's Day for Peace in Disarmament event, and I would like to welcome you all and give you a big thank you for being here. And also congratulations and happy International Women's Day for Peace and Disarmament. I'm Michaela Higgins-Sorensen, and today I will be chairing this event. And over the past 2 years, I've been PNND's Gender Peace and Security Officer, as well as a core member of Youth Fusion, two organizations that work closely and harmoniously together and encourage intergenerational dialogue. I have learned so much and have met so many inspiring people within this unique space. And the more I learn about the women, peace and security field, and the more voices I listen to from women around the world, the more importance I place on the women, peace and security agenda and the power it has to make the world a fairer, more peaceful, sustainable and humane place for all. The women, peace and security agenda is fairly new within the security field and is still finding its place. However, its reverberating presence is taking up more and more space as the importance and recognition of women in the peace and disarmament field is growing. Feminist foreign policies are developing all over the world, from Sweden to Mexico. The representation of such spaces is increasing, and we are finding out that there are better methods in practicing security and conflict resolution. As Maria Fernanda Espinosa, the president of the 73rd UN General Assembly and former foreign minister of Ecuador stated, women are not only victims of armed conflict and violence, but they can and should be leading the efforts in peace building, peacemaking, and conflict resolution. We need more women in peace and security. Today, I will echo Ms. Espinosa's statement, because even though things are getting better, there is still a long way to go, and that is why it is so important to celebrate today. Women are the most impacted by weaponry, militarism, and conflict. However, they have the least say in the matter. And when you peel back more of your analytical layers, you will find that women in the global south have even less say and are much more impacted. This is a stark injustice, as women in the global south have been on the forefront of peace building and disarmament processes and heroes within their communities. Today, we want to hear from women who have come from countries that exist within nuclear weapon-free zones in the global south because they have the experience, knowledge, and admirable determination to make this world a better and more peaceful place for all. These women are all, through their work, place a great importance on sustainability, inclusivity, human security, the women, peace and security agenda, and above all, making the world a better, fairer place for all. So the theme for today is going to explore women, peace and disarmament, perspectives and actions from the global south. Our message is clear. We refuse violence as a solution to the world's challenges. We are working for a just and peaceful world, one that meets human needs, not violent ones. And with that, I would like to mention that we had some supportive comments from Ambassador Chowdhury, who as president of the UN Security Council launched the process in March 2000 on the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325 on the role of women in peace and security. We also received warm wishes from Eva Kwistrup, one of the co-founders of International Women's Day for Peace and Disarmament, and today is also the anniversary of the launch in 2018 by the UN Security General of the UN Disarmament Agenda entitled Securing Our Common Future. So today is a very positive and special day indeed. Now, before I start, I would also like to thank our partners here today who have supported us with this event. PNND, the G100 Women Leaders Security and Defense Wing, Youth for TPNW, and Nuclear Wake-Up Call.Earth. Youth Fusion values such partnerships and looks forward to more collaborations in the future. So without further ado, I will introduce our first speaker, Ella Gandhi from South Africa. Ms. Gandhi is the granddaughter of Mahatma Gandhi and has a BA from the Natal University and thereafter worked as a social worker. She was the vice president of the Natal Indian Congress and served with the United Democratic Front and the Natal Organization of Women. During her civil rights work, She was subject to house arrest for 9 years by the apartheid South African regime starting in 1975. She was also a member of the Transnational Executive Council to establish a non-racial democracy in the historic election of 1994 that brought Nelson Mandela to his presidency, and subsequently served as a member of the South African Parliament from 1994 to 2004, helping to deconstruct apartheid. She was the Chancellor of Durban University of Technology and has won many awards for her humanitarian work from the Indian government and International Peace Award, and is honored as a veteran of the African National Congress. Ms. Gandhi has certainly followed in the inspiring footsteps of her grandfather. So now I will pass the floor to her.
Thank you so much, Madam Convener. And I'd like to take this opportunity to wish everyone a happy International Women's Day for Peace and Disarmament. And I hope that we are going to be successful as we have been in the past. So let us get together and march on. Having said that, I want to just make a few remarks. Firstly, that women are seldom involved in the front line of wars, but women are always, as you have already indicated, the victims of war. Among the war atrocities recorded over the centuries, women abuse tops the list. Women, therefore, have an interest in making peace and stopping war, and in seeking the continued suppression of nuclear proliferation through the environmental and faith-based organizations. History records many women leaders who have become well known for their peacemaking role and their actions against war. While Gandhiji advocated nonviolent action, Kasturba Gandhi, who was his wife, participated in the nonviolent struggle in her own right and mobilized millions of women in India against British occupation of India and hundreds in South Africa to demonstrate against racial oppression. She fearlessly served several sentences in prison, both in South Africa and in India, for her activities against the oppressive regime of South Africa and India. In 1944, she became ill while being incarcerated in Pune in a prison there, and refused to accept release unless others were released too. She passed away while in prison in the same year. So in South Africa, many women have also demonstrated against oppression and the extension of past laws to African women in particular. Among the pioneers were Charlotte Mteke and later Lillian Ngoyi. These women and many others committed themselves to peaceful resistance. For their work and commitment, the ANC declared the 9th of August as Women's Day. So in addition to all the other Women's Days that we have, we also in South Africa have the 9th of August. And today our democratic government has declared it a national holiday and a day dedicated to the brave women who marched to the Union buildings in 1956. Many women in South Africa also called for an end to military conscription and worked tirelessly on these issues alongside their sons and brothers and fathers who refused to be conscripted. Chiara Lubich in Italy started a whole movement called the Focolare movement against war. She said, and I quote, "Life is a time of trial, and at the end of it, too, an exam has to be taken. But in his infinite love, God has already told us what questions we will be asked. And this is the question. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. The works of mercy will be the subject of the exam. And in them, God will see if we have truly loved him by serving him in our neighbor. This is the quote from Kira Lubik. This is a powerful testimony against the viciousness of war, the use of weapons of mass destruction. Today, we have weapons that have the ability to destroy many more hectares of land, ecosystems, and people in an instant. We are seeing right now that war may seem to be far away for us in the South, and we can turn away and not do anything. But we know that its effects will be felt by us and by the world in many ways. Apart from the financial and access to resources, is the crucial question of how much of environmental damage is done by the use of these weapons. Whether weapons of mass destruction or ordinary weapons, they do destroy our environment. Indeed, these people who perpetrate war and use these weapons would find great difficulty in answering God's questions. Gandhiji wrote in the Harijan, a newspaper that he had started in India in 1938. And this is what he said: if the mad race for armaments continues, it is bound to result in a slaughter such as has never occurred in history. If there is a victor left, the very victory will be a living death for the nation that emerges victorious. A close quote. The time is now for women to take action and stop all wars and carnage and urge for peaceful negotiations. It is time for women to unite on this cause. It is time for us to stand up and be counted. It is time to insist on this armament, which is the only way in which war can be avoided. But not only that, the funds saved from this armament can go towards delivery of vital services to all our people across the globe, so that people can have access to clean water, quality education, quality healthcare, become economically self-sufficient, and have access to housing. All this can be made possible if only countries stopped buying weapons, stopped buying arms, and countries stopped manufacturing armaments. The positive effect of disarmament cannot be overemphasized. And it is this message that we need to convey to those continuing to manufacture weapons and those continuing to buy them. So women, let us unite today and let us call for an end to all wars and an end to manufacture of armaments. Thank you, and I hope we have success very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gandhi, for highlighting that women are on the front line of war and for giving us an insight into how this plays out in South Africa and explaining how South African women have demonstrated against oppression and injustice. You highlighted so well how everything is connected and that we simply cannot look away any longer. Thank you for being such an inspiring advocate for peaceful resistance. I am glad that South Africa and the world has you. Thank you very much. And now we are going to our next speaker, who is the awe-inspiring Ms. Ana Maria Seto from Mexico. Ms. Seto, who has had a phenomenal career with a background that lies in quantum mechanics, scholastic electrodynamics, and biological physics. Among many of her achievements, she has been the technical cooperation leader and deputy director general of the International Atomic Energy Agency in Vienna, won the Nobel Prize in 2005, has been the director of the Faculty of Sciences at the National Autonomous University of Mexico, has been a council member of the Pugwash Conferences when they received the Nobel Prize in 1995, and also a member of the World Future Council and was Mexico's Woman of the Year in 2003 as a member of the Third World Academy of Science, among other institutions. Alongside her outstanding achievements, Maceto has also written numerous academic articles and several books, has promoted scientific information programs in Latin America, as well as programs for the promotion and participation of women in science. I've had the privilege of speaking to Maceto about her amazing work through our Youth Fusion podcast, so I can assure you that you will learn a lot from her wisdom today. Maceto, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Michaela, for this too long introduction. Very kind of you. Hello, everybody. I would like to share a few slides that I have prepared. I hope this is possible. If you can,
I think
if you allow me, because at this point I cannot. Yes.
I think Ellen just needs to make you, you're a co-host now, so you can share them. So I think the option will be available for you now.
Yes. So let me see if you can see them full screen. Is that okay? No. Can you see them?
Yeah, now they're up. Yeah, we can see them.
Okay, yes. Well, thank you very much for this invitation. It's a pleasure for me to take part in this webinar, and I really feel humbled to talk after Madame Gandhi. And that's not an easy task, no? She is really very inspiring, and she has also a wonderful career in this field. You can see this is not the only international day that is dedicated to peace and disarmament or to women. I have made this list, and probably there are some other international days missing. No, the first one was on the 11th of February. Then we had the famous International Women's Day on the 8th of March. A few days ago, we had the International Day of Living Together in Peace, which, by the way, on the 16th of May coincides with the International Day of Light, in which we have also been involved. And then today, the International Women's Day for Peace and Disarmament, but this will be followed by the International Day of Peace on the 21st of September, and a few days later, the day for the total elimination of nuclear weapons, and ending with the World Science Day for Peace and Development. So, and there are also some weeks. There is a week for disarmament. Why do we mark international days? International days and weeks are supposed to be the occasions to educate the public on issues of concern, to mobilize political will and resources to address global problems, and to celebrate and reinforce the achievements of humanity. And it's interesting to note that these international days predate the establishment of the UN, but the UN has certainly embraced them as a powerful advocacy tool. Now, in the social and geopolitical setting of today, there is a lot of fragmentation and realignment. We are going through a very difficult time. A big change is underway. How have we come to this point? I would like here to share briefly a personal reflection, and I start with this photo taken in 1992. In fact, I was witness of this on this occasion. There was a Pugwash conference in Berlin in 1992, and I was just walking through the Brandenburger Tor with a Russian, a well-known Russian colleague from Pugwash, And we looked at this scene with very mixed feelings. On one hand, with distress, because former Soviet soldiers were selling their trophies. On the other hand, of course, with a lot of optimism, because the world seemed to be going out of the Cold War. But then we asked ourselves, is it really the end of the Cold War? Treaties have been signed, yes. This is a sign for optimism, surely. You can see nuclear weapon-free zones were being established already, mostly in the south, of course, following the example of the Tlatelolco Treaty, which dates back to 1967. No? And you can see that most of the south is indeed nuclear weapon-free. It's the south is a nuclear weapon-free zone almost entirely. Unfortunately, not yet the whole of the south, but most of it.
Ms. Seto, we just, when you I don't think you've changed the slide.
I changed it, but you don't see it. Then let me see. Let me see. I did change it, but you don't see it. What can we do? I can share it again.
Yeah, maybe we can try and make it the full screen, or just
yeah, that's what I tried. Let's see.
Or maybe because on your side, if you put it on full screen, maybe that was the issue. Maybe we could just leave it on the slideshow.
Yes, yes,
yeah.
that we can do. Yes, because it's important to see the slides. Let me see if I can. Okay, maybe you will see also the other slides, but
yeah,
never
now
mind.
yeah, maybe you can test if it changes and we see the same thing.
Do you see it? No.
Yeah, that we see the slide now. But maybe we could just test the changing to see if
you see it?
Yeah,
you see
now
the
it
change?
changes. Yeah, now it changes. Yeah.
Okay, so you hadn't seen this photo. Well,
yeah.
For me, it was very impressive. I still have it in my mind. This photo was not taken by me. We had no cell phones in those times, but this scene is very familiar to me. That's what I saw. That's what we saw in 1992 and created mixed feelings among us. No? So the next one, here you have the nuclear weapon-free zones. I don't know if you see the full map, no? And in addition to almost all the South being nuclear weapon-free zone, including the Antarctic, no? We have the Outer Space Treaty, we have the Seabed Treaty. So these were, of course, signs of hope and optimism, no? But we also have yet on another front, no? Things look very different. NATO started to expand towards the west of Europe, touching the borders of Russia and the former USSR. So this did not sound as the end of the Cold War. In fact, rather than the end of the Cold War, I think we need to speak of a different stage of the Cold War, because it certainly has taken turns, no? And add to this the numerous sanctions imposed by several countries, especially the US and the European Union, on more than 40 countries across the globe, which also are exacerbating the problems of famines, shortages, and sending shockwaves to other parts of the world. This is not a sign for optimism. You can see, for instance, in how many, about 200 million people are probably going to continue migrating to other places, looking for better conditions, crossing borders to other nations because of famines and droughts. No? We are also the border of a sixth massive extinction on the planet, according to the latest indicators, because of the disappearance of species in an at an unprecedented level. So biological extinction is also part of the current map. And what's the conclusion of all this? Well, exactly as Madam Gandhi has said, peace calls for a true global movement against all kinds of expansion, a truly humanitarian movement, of which, of course, disarmament needs to be part. We need to put people and nature at the center of our attentions, our efforts, our investments. This is the only path to peace. Unfortunately, the corporate governments of today will not take steps in this direction. They are not taking them. They are investing and sending billions, $53 billion to Ukraine of weapons and intelligence, which is huge compared with the 91 million promised by the US to Ethiopia for to solve the problems of famine there. So can we expect these governments to take steps in the right direction? Not if we leave them alone, because it goes against their interests. They fuel the conflict because they make profit of it. Youth and women, especially of the South, are the source of our hope. They have shown a capacity to organize and get things moving through parliamentary action, through education, through political action, through diplomacy, through science even. We should leave no stone unturned. Thank you.
Thank you for educating us all on the special days related to International Women's Day for Peace and Disarmament, and for raising the matter of their importance. It is important to commemorate them and also learn more about their meaning and history, as you shared with us. Like Ms. Gandhi, you also showed us just how connected everything is and addressed the urgency of our global problems, all in connection to the Women, Peace and Disarmament agenda. Thank you for all the work you do. And I really think that we need more strong voices like yours in global decision-making. So thank you once again, Ms. Seto. It was a delight as always to listen to you. Now we're going to move on to our next speaker, who is Lee Sen from Cambodia. And she is a gender and minority specialist at Women Peacemakers, a non-governmental organization in Cambodia that works at the intersection of gender and peace building. She works with marginalized girls, women, and people of other gender identities to explore intersectional issues and create coalitions to advocate for change. She is the lead author of Making the Space, Voices from Girls of Cambodian Minority Communities, and spent 3 years bringing them together ethnic, religious, and cultural minority girls across the country through inquiry, art, and advocacy. She has also worked at the Embassy of the United States in Cambodia in the Public Affairs section. Lee received a bachelor's degree in International Relations at the Royal University of Law and Economics in Cambodia and was a Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative Academic Fellow at the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Lee, I am so happy you agreed to join us today and share your expertise with us. I'll pass the floor over to you now.
Thank you, Michaela. And it's great to be here, and it's been an honor to be here with everyone else, and it's a great opportunity as well to share the perspective and context from Cambodia. And I'm Lei and working at Women Peacemakers. And as Michaela have mentioned, that we are working with the intersections of gender and peace building. And mainly we have 2 programs actually on gender and peace, but however, it's still the intersections between those 2 are still remain, which means that even though with the gender programs and projects that we have implemented basically incorporate with peace building and also with the genders intersection. It's been challenging as well. By using gender lens and peace building together, we could achieve more by involving women into the process, because we have seen that in Cambodia, basically women are underrepresented, being left out from policy makings or any development, instead of being a development or the scope of the development, such as being a role to actually bringing peace or to achieve the policy making goals. That was all what we expected, but in reality, women are placed in the positions where they are a beneficiary aides instead of being a part in peace building or in any policy making in as well in Cambodia. So that's what we have seen here, and which is why we thought that it would be great to see as women could be one of the actors that could be taking a lead in all those processes, such as peace building. So our programs, basically, I've been working with minority groups, specifically with ethnic, religious, and cultural minorities, and also women from who are living with disabilities and LGBTQI+ communities. So all those communities are being left out and feel that they are marginalized. So through our programs, we have involved them into the process to make sure that their voices are heard. Because even though we see that peace is actually the absence of war, but it's actually not, because there are still positive peace that we should look at, and women should be one of the actors and the important people who are the voices and should be included. Even though in Cambodia we have seen that women are really like facing lots of challenges in terms of being in a position where they can, or we can, like making decisions on development policy or anything, which is why we have decided to make sure that the data is collected to make sure that their voices are heard through a different approach. We have been trying multiple approaches, such as using the research, such as what Michaela have been mentioned as well on the making the space. So we have used the facilitative listening design research methodology, where we hear the story directly from the impacted community, which means minority women and women in general, but specifically we focusing on minority women, like ethnic, religious, and cultural minorities, and also those individuals who come from the minority communities. So by using those approach, we have seen that women are able to express themselves, even though they are not able to engage in any policy or decision making yet, but we are making sure that they can be a part of the problem solving, such as to voice their challenges, their needs, so that all those policies or approach or strategies that the government or the CSO are working on to fit them better. So that's why we have incorporate research approach into all the programs that we work on, to make sure that we have all the evidence that we need to advocate for them and together as well. And also some of other approach that we have incorporate in our work is the art-based approach, where we have such as paintings or role play. So that's why we have seen that minority women, especially, and girls, they were living in the triple burden. That's what we call, because being young, being female, and being a minority, they face triple burden and not able to express themselves. So being in this sensitive, living in the sensitive community with different gender norms, with different stereotypes towards them as a minority. So all those combined make them feel less of the like value than other people. And we have seen that into our research, so that we've been really flexible and trying to find ways to actually engage them in any opportunity so that they can voice up. So all those art-based approach that we use during the process, such as the workshop where we can train them on gender or in identity, so that they can express themselves better through arts, because they feel that their voices are not heard by the local authority, by the stakeholders, or by the decision makers. So we are using those so that they can draw, they could paint, or they could use different kind of art activities to express themselves better. And that we had seen positive impacts as well from the community, where they were really surprised because of their arts. They are talented, and also they could share their story through that, their communities, their challenges, their hopes and dreams through those pieces, which inspire others as well. And another point is that we are focusing on intersections, where it's not about gender or peace building, but it's about the intersection using gender lens through each of our programs, which means that we are looking at every angles, and we train our participants on non-violent communication, so that they are able to use that and communicate better, because they all from different backgrounds, different ethnicity, and different groups, minority groups across Cambodia. So we thought that it would be a good knowledge and skills to be looking at, like how to communicate with other groups better, and how we can build peace or positive peace within the group to actually engage them better. And we also, every activities, we have looked closely into do no harms approach, because as we know that it's been challenging to work with minority groups, because it's often seen as like political related, or any other issues, for example, like stereotypes toward each other. I've been working with Muslim, ethnic Vietnamese, Khmer Krom, those who are currently in Vietnam and moved back to Cambodia, where we call them Khmer Krom, and also the indigenous group. So all those four groups have unique challenges. And we have seen that through all the research, through the workshops that we have been engaged with them, have brought them together, and they inspire each other differently through peace building and through their experiences from their communities. And that was surprisingly, everyone was develop their connections toward each other and become closer to each other without any negative stereotypes toward each other anymore. So that's what we have seen in that. And also with the scope of development, we have been involving women in empowerment, and also helping them and supporting them to take a lead into their community initiative. For example, we have a group of youth where they call themselves as Network of Interethnic Peace Ambassador, where they have their own group to engage with all the youth from different ethnicity, and also from minority groups, so that the goal is to make sure that everyone could be aware of each other and the challenges, and also work together to build peace, especially in positive peace. So that's what we've been proud of, the fact that they come together as a youth and to engage with each other for future development in peace building. And also, we also have worked with different groups of minority girls across Cambodia. And I will drop the link of the book here, which is actually published early this year. So we just did a launch of the book. So the book is actually focusing on the intersections of gender and peace building on minority girls across Cambodia through their stories, their will be using to advocate for their voice as well. And also, I think that it is important to bring minority people and also to include women and being inclusive into peace building and also in any other development factors or positive peace, because women are underrepresented, at least in Cambodia. Not many policymakers who are women. Only 2 people are in the government, 2 women in the government only. And we wanted to inspire and to support women so that they could have a place in the society where they can support each other and to see a bigger picture of the power that women could be as well as good and are capable of leading and become a leader. So that's what we have been engaging with women and also youth in Cambodia, so that to make sure that they are able to voice up and bringing those matters to the policymakers and to stand up for themselves, to make sure that they do their part as to voice up what is going on and to make sure that their voices are being heard and taken into actions. And that's what we have been working on. And also, I think that from my point of views is to I wanted to see the people who come from different backgrounds and ethnic groups and minority groups to be able to understand on each other. And especially because we thought that peace is not just the absence of war, but everyone should be enjoying the sustainable peace and the goal. And because I've have working with minority and they've been just living in a like horrible condition. For example, they don't even kids can go to school because they don't have all those documents. So like everyone should be able to be educated going to school, and women as well should be able to voice up and being included in policy makings. So on, and hopefully we could connected them for a sustainable goal where they can enjoy and also being a part of the changes and to see themselves as a big factors to changes. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives from Cambodia. I was really happy when you accepted the invitation to speak, as we haven't really heard too many people from that part of the world. So that was super, super fantastic. And it was also really great to hear about your important work in highlighting the intersections of gender and peace building, and also working on the policy level in a very intersectional way that includes marginalized minorities. That's really, really important work that you're doing. And it's also really great to hear about your impact. And you should definitely be proud of all the work that, that you've been doing. So thank you very, very much. That was an absolute delight to hear about. And now we are going to go to our next speaker, who is from Argentina, Maria Garzon Maceda, and she is a research assistant for the Weapons of Mass Destruction and Space Security programs at UNIDIA. She provides research analysis and operational support to the program's work streams with a focus on biological and chemical weapons. Before joining UNIDIA, Maria was a policy fellow at the European University Institute, where she worked on streaming the participation of the Global South in weapons of mass destruction regimes. Previously, Maria was a civil servant with 10 years of progressive experience in the Argentine Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where she worked on the implementation of the Chemical Weapons Convention. She is an active participant in several youth and women initiatives in the field of disarmament and non-proliferation. And with substantive interdisciplinary training, Maria holds a master's degree in international affairs from the Graduate Institute in Geneva and graduated cum laude as a bachelor in political science from the University of Buenos Aires. With such an impressive background and a very relevant area of expertise for today's event, I now welcome Ms. Maria Maceda to the floor.
Thank you, Ola. Hello, and thank you, Michaela, and the organizing for putting this event together and inviting me to speak today. And happy International Women's Day for Peace and Disarmament to all of you. I'm very honored to be talking about such remarkable and inspiring women for me personally. And hopefully we can all in the meeting interact a little bit to learn from each other as well. But at the outset, I have to say I am speaking in my personal capacity, and my words don't reflect the view of UNIDIR or the UN. But I love being in this event because it kind of ties up all of my favorite topics of discussion: disarmament, the global south, women, and youth. So basically a discussion on how we can move forward peace and disarmament through diversifying this field and ensuring that all voices are being represented and are actually being heard. And as it was mentioned before, I work in the field of WMDs, weapons of mass destruction, nuclear biochem, and international regimes of disarmament. So that is what I want to focus today in these brief remarks. And there are several layers of power dynamics that interact in this field of disarmament. And this has been traditionally a US Eurocentric focused field in literature, in the discussions, in the events, but also in institutions and in policy. And on top of that, it has been traditionally a realm of men, and of military men in particular, and of old military men from the north, if you wish, because those were persons that were involved in these activities in the past, and therefore the ones that get invited to continue these conversations, right? And this implies several patterns of exclusion in this field. The matter of who is considered to have the ability and the right to speak and to act. And this happens at a state level, but also on the expert level, at the stakeholder level. And in this framework, we can easily see how the security concerns and interests that the majority of the world, of big portions of the world could have, could be sidelined as a result of this. So I would like to focus on that first layer that we mentioned, kind of the global south issue. And it's important to acknowledge first that when and if we choose to talk about the global south, this always implies a relationship with a global north. So the south is the south because there is a north. And by no means I am talking here in a simplistic or binary sense. We can have a whole different conversation about the concept of the global south. But with this concept, I think it's useful because we can do two things. On one side, we can acknowledge all of the challenges that the global south countries face in this sphere, given structural conditions. But on the other side, we can also recognize the specific agency, the specific contribution of the global south to the field. And with this combination, we can see how we can counter the challenges by taking stock of strategies that have been proven to be successful in the past. So I said that one of the important things this concept allows us to do is to unveil or understand the structural power dynamics that underpin this smooth nation state system idea in which every country is equal and has one vote at the General Assembly. And the thing is, all countries are equal, but some are more equal than others, right? I'd say essentially this is an issue of power dynamics, right? That creates several challenges for countries in the global south to participate and to be properly represented, and even sometimes affect their ability to comply with WMD regimes. Financial constraints, political constraints, human resources constraints, knowledge constraints. Essentially, all of this can create a vicious cycle that affects their participation and their representation. So, for example, these challenges are reflected in the pattern of attendance to conferences and meetings, also in submittance of their compliance reports to disarmament regimes, for example. And merely from an arms control effectiveness viewpoint, regimes simply cannot be successful without proper participation and compliance from all. We know that every chain is as strong as its weakest link, right? But I also said on the other side that through this global South lens, we could recognize the agency that these countries have and had through different initiatives and strategies. We can see how to diversify these voices and bring more ideas to solve the common challenges that we face on disarmament and arms control. Countries from the global South have been indeed quite successful in bringing their interests into UN frameworks. They crafted disarmament policies, they generated momentum for several multilateral disarmament agreements. So overall, the global South has managed to keep disarmament on the global agenda. I'm talking here about the old call for general and complete disarmament from the non-aligned movement back in 1961. We also have, it was mentioned, the nuclear weapon-free zones, all located in the global South. Also treaty initiatives like the Ottawa process to ban landmines, which was very resisted at first, and more recently, of course, the TPNW process, right? And it's also worth noting that, as I think Michaela mentioned in the beginning, since the global South has suffered disproportionately from weapons, both nuclear and conventional, what they can contribute to the discussions and these initiatives, this all reflects lived actual experiences. So by looking at this agency of the global South, we can see a number of strategies that states have used to overcome all of these challenges that we have recognized. For example, it is usually said that smaller states have higher stakes in diplomacy and in a strong multilateral system, because this allows them to amplify their voice and reduce power disparity. Some strategies are forming strong state groupings. I mentioned the NAM, the non-aligned movement, but also the G77, for example. These are useful politically on the power of numbers, let's say, but also in terms of pooling resources, for example. Countries can also support and rely on global South countries that are already active in these issues. To mention a few, South Africa, we all know it gave up its nuclear weapons. It's seen as a moral authority on that issue. Argentina, Brazil, they have substantive experience on technical and nuclear issues. Mexico and Costa Rica have spearheaded the efforts for the ban treaty and so on, right? And there are also other more mundane but highly effective strategies to make, for example, to make use of the resources that international agencies and NGOs offer in terms of improving national implementation, and also just streamlining reporting, generating templates, protocols, building written institutional memory. All of these things allow small offices with few resources to comply better with their obligations to WMD regimes in a much easier way. And I say this from my own experience too. But to conclude now, why this should be important. I know we're here, we care, but for others outside this room, right? And as other speakers said, if we want to be able to deal with today's problems, these issues in disarmament, non-proliferation, they need to be thought of and practiced in new ways. They cannot be so closed and exclusive. The thing is that multilateralism and inclusive governance is, I think, the best path to ensure a more safe and secure world for all of us. It is important that we acknowledge diverse concerns, that we involve all states meaningfully in all steps of the process, and to bring alternative and diverse voices and solutions to the table, and actually be willing to really hear them out. And I'm not saying this because I consider them to be the truth. It's just because it's helpful. Increasing the diversity of perspectives can broaden our understanding of security. It can lead to more thorough examination of what the issues are, and we can achieve more sustainable policy outcomes. And apart from that, also, creativity and innovation need diversity. And I think sometimes this field of disarmament is too conservative for its own good. But I'd love to talk about gender balance in disarmament regimes, so how to promote women and youth participation in my own experience, but I'm conscious of time, so I just stick with that of the Global South. But with that, I'll give you back the floor and look forward to the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Maria. And I'm really happy that this event tied together all of your favorite topics. I think we can definitely see how passionate you are about your field of expertise, where you pointed out how women and people from the Global South are not involved enough on multiple levels of decision-making within the security field, and how you challenge present power structures. It is true that some people are more equal than others, and challenging this is why your work is so, so important. Agency is important, and we need the Global North and Global South to work together on an equal playing field as we are dealing with global issues at the end of the day. So thank you so much for highlighting all these key points. I think we've all learned a lot and agree with many of your points. So thank you again. And now we will move on to our next and last but certainly not least speaker, Ajurim Setinova from Kazakhstan, who holds LLM in International Human Rights from University of Essex in the UK, supported by the Chevening Scholarship, and a Master's in European Studies from Yerevan State University and Taras Shevchenko National University of Kiev, supported by the European Union. Ajurim's main interests are centered across intersecting areas such as women's rights, educational projects focused on the nexus between memory, culture, and legal perspectives and critical approaches to international law, nuclear disarmament and peace activism, cross-cultural education and decolonial feminism, and human rights advocacy. After working with Ajurim over the past year, I am continually inspired and motivated by her, and I know by listening to her today, you will be too. So Ajurim, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Michaela. Likewise, I'm inspired by you, and thank you so much for inviting me. I will just send one message about the project that I have been doing as part of my internship at Youth Fusion Basel Peace Office, and now I will start my speech today. And dear distinguished guests and speakers, it is my honor to speak today at this event in commemoration of the International Women's Day for Peace and Disarmament. First of all, let me congratulate all of you with such an amazing day, which we are celebrating together today. Second of all, I want to say a huge thank you to all the women from previous and current generations who have been relentlessly working towards gender equality and women's rights, which I'm lucky to enjoy, as we can see now today from our guests and participants of our event. I feel grateful, proud, and honored to continue the battle for gender justice and women's rights, and I acknowledge that despite this brilliant women's work and activism, there is so much to be done and achieved. As Michaela has already said, I'm a human rights professional, and I just recently graduated from the University of Essex. I come from Kazakhstan, from the city called Semey, which I'm currently in. It's the town formerly known as Semipalatinsk, where the Soviet Union tested 456 nuclear weapons during 40 years. The gendered impact of ionizing radiation, which resulted from nuclear testing, has been following Kazakh women and men for decades. My grandmother, my mother, me, and the women of my family have been negatively and disproportionately affected by nuclear tests. Stillbirth, newborns and children with disabilities, high rates of cancer, blood diseases, including leukemia, were common in my region, and sometimes it can happen now in different areas as well. There has been also a stigma which centered on women from my region more than men, blaming them for newborns with disabilities or perceived women as contaminated. For many years, women and men lived without knowing what and how exactly their lives, their bodies, and environment would be affected or were affected, since the information about the nuclear test site was classified for many years. After the test closure and during active testing, many women did not know why there are so many children who had malformations. There has been lack of awareness, but there has been fear. When the Soviet Union collapsed, Kazakhstan, as a new country, was left with a nuclear arsenal, and Kazakhstan gave up over 1,000 nuclear weapons. For us, for Kazakh people, being free from nuclear weapons is also very much about our independence from the Soviet Union and search for our national identity after decades of being under hegemon power and rule of Russian Empire and the Soviet Union. In addition to that, in 2006, after collaborative efforts of 5 Central Asian countries, which also once were a part of the Soviet Union and also hosted nuclear arsenal during that period, these countries, they established, formed, and created the Central Asian Nuclear Weapon-Free Zone, and this zone borders 2 nuclear weapon states, Russia and China. And in my opinion, this exact development has been a really powerful step. However, I understand that nuclear weapons, despite being associated with masculinity, it is also linked very much closely to colonial narrative as well. This follows on the message of my today's speech on how better cooperation can create more inclusive forums for women, peace and security and disarmament agendas, where both of the fields would avoid reproduction of hegemonic discourse through victimization, gender and cultural essentialism, and overgeneralization of women experiences. I acknowledge the work which has been done for decades in order to bring to light 11 WPS resolutions and many more documents which constitute in general women's human rights, including CEDAW, general recommendations, and human rights mechanisms as well. And today I want to emphasize that following the aim of women peace activists in 80s and earlier and later of the last century, women peace and security and disarmament agendas would make a really powerful collaboration if used together. It could be a good time to shift focus from referring to disarmament as emasculation policy of the weak and femininity to reaffirming the power of the disarmament in light of the current war in Ukraine and nuclear threat which Russia may impose. And I think that in this regard, WPS and disarmament agendas have the opportunity to amplify connection between each other instead of reiterating the colonial or imperialistic or patriarchal narratives with condemning practices when the war and male violence are glorified. As we know, not only the arms control field and nuclear weapon system are male and masculine, but international law itself is male dominated, and both fields are rather Eurocentric, as Maria mentioned previously, considering history and power imbalances. In this regard, this is very important that WPS would not fall into this narrative, but would rather dismantle these inequalities, going beyond coloniality of power, and therefore would empower different groups. A lot has been done, but unfortunately, the law and some institutions may sometimes remain within the colonial matrix and fall into dichotomies of the global north, global south, first world, third world, hegemon, subaltern, civilized, uncivilized, and these binaries fall not only within territorial, racial, ethnic, and economic bases, but also within binaries of gender. It is also important to understand that women, peace and security agenda should go away from the perception where it centers only women, but it also should go beyond heteronormative discourse and include non-binary and gender fluid persons, and acknowledge that during times of both conflict and peace, different groups impacted by weapons disproportionately based on their characteristics, including LGBTI persons as well. There are plentiful amounts of different laws, international, regional, and domestic, but despite existing laws which regulate protection of human rights and peace building, despite having created a system to oversee their implementation and to hold accountable those who transgress, the dream of achieving gender equality still seems out of reach. However, gender analysis, quality data, understanding of gender norms and impact of weapons can help in many things. For example, to understand how it affects different groups, how gender-balanced representation in peace and security would help to improve decision-making in all the stages and pillars of WPS. And as a young woman, I want to see changes in representation of women in decision-making and participation in peace disarmament processes throughout the globe, of course. And I think that the work of civil society organization at the grassroots levels on promoting gender parity and equality has to be supported by international and regional organizations, especially now during pandemic, which decreased social economic situation of women and led to decrease of violence against women. Also, using human rights language with attention to political, social, and economic rights, WPS and disarmament fields in cooperative work can bring more voices to the table, recognizing not only gendered impact of weapons, but also the colonialism and hierarchical imbalance of power and hegemony of Western states, but also not Western states, taking into account Russia and China as well. Should WPS and disarmament agendas implemented more inclusive, holistic, and critical approach, it would allow not to dismantle but challenge colonial legacy of the past and neo-colonialism, and would help to erase racist, homophobic, and transphobic notions without falling into othering narrative. This will rather be encouraging and robust than disempowering and non-binding as it remains in the present day. And for me, the last thing that I want to say, gender equality is a human right that will foster development and better conditions for each and every person. And I see real changes happen where women and other groups are in every part of life and have equal access to all opportunities. Glass ceiling stops women from realizing their potential. So it's finally the time to crush the glass without violence, but with concrete and effective steps and strong cooperation, but also again, I want to emphasize, thank you very much to everyone here. There are so many absolutely historically amazing people and women who worked for so many years, and the results that we are enjoying right now is because of you. Thank you very much.
The issue of nuclear disarmament is very close to your heart, Ajrim, as you've been directly impacted by nuclear weapons testing. So thank you so much for sharing with us both the personal side of this, as well as educating us on the complex story of SEMI, connecting it to gender, colonialism, and the global order. And I always love listening to you and your wisdom, as I'm sure everyone here has today. So thank you again, Ajrim. That was fantastic. And now we move into the more dynamic part of the session, the Q&A session. So since this is a meeting format, you can either drop your questions into the chat box, or you can raise your hand and ask them verbally, whatever is more comfortable for you. And I'd also just like to point out that I hope that we've all learned something new and valuable here today, and be just as inspired and motivated as I am, because this line of work can be quite tough. And that's why I always really love to listen to such brilliant speakers to lift me up and remind me of why this work is so important. So thank you once again to the speakers. And let me see if there are any hands raised or any questions in the chat box. You can ask a question to any one of the speakers. And does everyone, well, yes, Alan is also reminding us that you can find the raise hand button under the reaction on the bottom of your screen on the toolbar, or even if you just put a happy face or something. Right, we have 2 raised hands. All right, so Pamela, I think you can unmute and ask your question.
Sure. So we're a 40-year-old peace group I'm older than that, but our peace group is that old. And almost all of our active members are 70, 80 years old. And so we're legacy, but we don't have younger members. And do you have any, I guess, suggestions on how to communicate more with younger people?
I guess one of our youth speakers, maybe, I don't know, Ajurim or Lee or Maria, I don't know, do you guys want to tackle that question? I know that Ajurim is also part of Youth Fusion, and we are very strong proponents for intergenerational dialogue.
Yeah, I think that maybe from this kind of events where we really create intergenerational dialogue, because there's so much that we can learn from you. And I think that this kind of events can be a really good tool for involving more dialogue between you and us.
I think Miseto also has an answer.
Well, yes, I would like to say first that we, the older generation, can learn from you, the younger ones. I think it is very important to listen to you because you come with fresh ideas. You know, the older generation, especially because of this dominance of the West and the North that has been mentioned by several of you, is very much geared to thinking first of war, of weapons, and then comes peace. No, it's not like that everywhere in the world. For instance, in Mexico and in general in Latin America, we first have peace in our minds. We have, that's why we could go ahead with a nuclear weapon-free zone, etc. But this is not the mainstream thinking today in the West. Still, there is a Cold War mentality, and I would think that, and when I listen to you, Micaela, when I listen to Ayerim, when I listen to Maria, I see these are the new voices. Those voices we have to hear. So what we need is more people to think the way you think and to act. It's not sufficient to establish a dialogue and to come together and and realize that we agree or perhaps we disagree, etc. We have to move forward. But if I may, Micaela, there is a question for Maria and for me from Eva Quistorf. May I try to respond to that one?
Yeah, we can do that now while you have the floor.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, because Eva asks, is the majority of the public in Argentina and Mexico happy to be part of a nuclear weapon-free zone? Do they see the nuclear plants as a danger for their lives and future? Well, I'm not going to respond on behalf of Argentina. We have here a very well informed and very clear-minded speaker. But as a Mexican, I've seen that in general, yes, we are all proud of being, let's say, the pioneers of the nuclear weapon-free zones. And we think that has been an important step, a success of Mexican traditional diplomacy. We have a nuclear power plant in the state of Veracruz, and well, sometimes there are some people who say that there is a danger. It is being inspected regularly. I'm not technically minded as to say this is 100% safe. I don't think there is any power plant, nuclear or not, that is 100% safe. No? But it undergoes usual inspections, etc. However, it is true that as of the middle 1980s, especially after the Chernobyl accident, a decision was taken not to build more nuclear power plants. This decision, the issue has been revived a couple of times, but for the time being, there are no plans to build more nuclear power plants. And actually, like in many other countries, we do think that the alternative is somewhere else, is with the sustainable development of sustainable energy sources, especially in a country that is so generously lit by the sun, solar radiation. We can get a real benefit from it if the political decision is taken in this regard. So we don't see, in brief, the nuclear power as a menace, as a danger, and we think that what is needed is that also the countries in the geographical north denuclearize. That is what is urgent, and they don't invest in more weapons of mass destruction, whether nuclear or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Seto. And I think I'll just get to Ms. Gandhi before I touch on Maria, because I think Maria will also answer this question. But I think Ms. Gandhi was having her hand raised for the previous question. So we'll just take Ms. Gandhi's question.
Thank you. I was actually trying to answer the question, the last, previous speakers, about youth.
Mm-hmm.
And how one mobilizes youth. So in recent times in our organization, we've been working very closely with the youth. And what we found is that, there's a great deal of interest. We've had several sessions with the youth on issues that concern them. We asked them, what is it that's of concern to you? And recently, because of the floods and because of the high rate of unemployment amongst youth and the violence, the uprising in KZN in our province, lots of youth have come forward. And so we've had discussions with them, and at first I thought that they listen to things and we don't know whether they are actually digesting. But recently we had another meeting where people came and we took some of our youth to them. And I was so surprised, pleasantly surprised, when our youth came out and spoke strongly about peace issues, about nonviolence, and everything that you think that is not concerning them, but because we had discussed it, they had digested everything that we said and brought it out at this meeting. So it's, I think we have to start where they are and then carry on, and you'll see the difference that they bring out. So I'm very positive about you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gandhi. I really think that all of us youths here really appreciate that, and also being met where we're at. So thank you for that response. And does anyone else have anything to say on the first? Yeah, I think Dale, you also wanted to, you could, if it's in response to the first question, then take the floor.
Yes, I'm obviously of a certain generation, unless I miraculously have platinum hair, I suppose. In any case, my entire life has been spent in the peace movement. And I'm sure that there are many other people who are attending who are like that. But I find that when I hear from people who say, how do we engage the youth? Or how do we, like, look, we're all just gray haired. How come we don't have some young people present? And I wonder what they are doing in order to engage young people. And one of the things we found was looking around at activities that young people in our city did and turning up to support them. So there's there's an ongoing group of people who have Fridays for Future. That's organized by the kids, high school kids. The adults can turn up and we can be friendly adults, talk to kids. And that seems to be valued too. So I think that to think that young people, I just will close by saying your speakers were awesome. This was incredible. I just was my socks were knocked off. I see that it is going to be, or that is recorded, and I will send this site on to everybody I know of. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. And I also full-heartedly agree that our speakers were absolutely phenomenal today. So thank you so much for that, Dale. And now I think, does anyone else have anything else to say about youth involvement? Yeah, okay, Yael, then you can chip in.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Yael Danieli. I am the director of the International Center for the Study, Prevention and Treatment of Multi-Generational Legacies of Trauma. First of all, let me say, I am a total admirer of Youth Fusion. I have not missed one of your events, and I'm very happy to always be invited. As you see from the name of our organization, we are multi-generational. So that is our vision, our mission. As the previous speaker said, this has been an amazing event. So much wisdom from so many different angles, which is also our side. We also believe in multidisciplinarity, looking at the issues from every point of view. But if I may use your permission to speak, Ajrim, would you be in touch with me, please? You must be, because we launched, I would like to say, we launched to everyone, actually. We launched a world study on the psychosocial effects of nuclear use and nuclear development and nuclear testing, everything about nuclear. And of course, and Alan knows about it, and of course, translation, valid, culturally relevant translations are not easy to come by. So we need all of your help. And we would love for you to collaborate with us in every way possible. So I would send you, I'm a little technically challenged, I would send you later because I'm actually in the 80s, right? So I'm an oldie. So I will send you the announcement. If you would please, please, please share it with everyone for whoever it's applicable. But Ajrim, I need you. I need you. So be in touch with me, please.
Sure. I think that Michaela will send me or Alan. Thank you very much, Yael. I will be very happy to collaborate, and thank you very much.
Because part of what has been talked about always is the physical and medical and physiological legacies, but very little about the psychological, the social, the psychosocial, the psychocultural. And that's really important for us to give the full picture. So governments will learn more seriously about what do we really do when we use these weapons? How many generations do we commit to misery? So I'm so sorry I spoke too much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I think we all appreciate the enthusiasm and willingness to collaborate. So thank you so much. That was lovely. And now I think we can go to Maria to address the second point.
Perfect, thank you. I'm just going to briefly comment on the intergenerational dialogue question as well. Just to mention the importance of that dialogue, to second that, and to say that I, as a person who has been working for the government and for now an international organization, I can definitely say that we have a lot to learn in these fields from NGOs and grassroots organizations. So thank you for all the work you do in that regard. And regarding the second question about Latin America, I totally agree with Ana Maria. But I did want to make the distinction between the nuclear weapons free zone issue and the nuclear energy issue. I think that as she said, in our region, we have peace as a first thought, and then nuclear weapons, because we are so fortunate to that was never a problem, an endogamic problem in our region. It's a region of peace in that regard. It was kind of, I think a natural consequence to have the nuclear weapons free zone established and sustained for such a long time. And then it comes disarmament, as Ana Maria mentioned as well, and the importance of nuclear disarmament. But then on the other side, we have nuclear energy, and particularly in Argentina, this is something that has been established for a long time. We were one of the first countries in the world to develop nuclear energy. And this has been a state policy of Argentina for a long time, of which many people are very proud of. We're actually building, for example, small modular reactors now. We're one of the few countries that are doing so. That could potentially help with energy issues in smaller countries, for example. Again, as Ana Maria said, there are several opinions and studies about the safety of nuclear energy, but it's something to consider. And in that regard, also, our nuclear energy policy has been beneficial in other aspects. For example, we have a very strong cooperation with Brazil, our border partner, right? And this was actually developed, this strong cooperation in nuclear issues has been strongly developed after we nearly came to a war, right? So I think the science and tech opportunities should not be discounted as well. Those are my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, Maria. And I think we had one more question from Nurhan.
Yes. I'm sorry. Thank you for giving me the space to speak. Thank you for organizing this side event, because we need a lot of activity like this, because that we have a very big gap about the young generation, for example, in Middle East and North Africa. I'm proud that I start working for this with my organization, Mad for Peace, to promoting the rule of use, to use our voices in international meeting, for example. And thank you for your organization also, because this is the first time when we joined the BCA World to talk about the limitation of armament in Middle East, make us more support for our voice. And I would like to tell you that we have also some activity to try to raise awareness, to try to give the role of the younger generation to promoting the peace and work on different. And we also focus on the scientists, young people, and that also youth in different part, work in different part, like the law, political, like this. And we now have the Global Coalition for Limitation of Armament. This is like that civil society from different area of the world, from from American, Latin, Africa, Asia, that we try to work together to when we join any meeting, international meeting with the UN, to try to discuss with the state party about that, how we can implementation the international treaty to support a lot. I'm sorry to talk a lot, but I think it is my experience, and I would like to share with you, because I know today you talk all about that, a different information. It will help us to continue in our work, because that I think this positive point to tell you about our work.
Thank you so much, Nola. It's greatly appreciated. And now we're coming close to the end of our event, and I know we've gone quite a bit over time, but I think we've all been enjoying ourselves a lot, so maybe that's a good sign. But I think I would like to just quickly invite Eva Kristrup to say a few words, just maybe a minute or two, if you'd like, Eva. Is she still online? Let's check. I think, Eva, can you hear us? I think you've just unmuted yourself now. Okay, then we'll just jump to the Mentimeter quiz that I have made, which I'm going to put in the link. So you can either go to menti.com and click on that link, and it'll go right to an interactive session. And I can just see Eva does not have a microphone to speak, but she has been very active in the chat, so I'm sure we can be enlightened with her through the chat box. So thank you, Eva. But now we can go to the Mentimeter. So basically how this works, if everyone goes to the chat, I have just put the link, so you can do it either on the computer, or you can go to www.menti.com on your phone and then use a code 66048501, which is also in the chat box. So I will go ahead and share my screen, and I'll explain the question just now. So the question is asking, what does women, peace, and security mean to you? So this is just a very nice exercise to wrap up and have a little bit of a reflection going on. So we can see there's already some entries. We have equality, sustainable peace, future, solidarity, more sustainability, progressiveness, empowerment, common and human security, and a better world, empowerment, positive peace. Sometimes it takes a bit long to get to load the responses, but I can see that we already have a lot of terms here that are going very much hand in hand. And also, if you would like to use the chat box, if the link doesn't work, I can see we have, yes, public diplomacy, safety for future as well in the chat box. Oops, sorry. Right, so I think, yeah, we have 6 people answering, so maybe we'll give it a minute or two more. to see if there are any more responses. This you can also upload your responses after the event with that link, and then I can share them on the Youth Fusion site. Yes, progressiveness is a new word, also inclusivity, real progress. And the chat box also says the SDGs of the UN and intercultural and intergenerational dialogue, very important. Yeah, so we can definitely see a lot of themes that are popping up here in these responses. So it's very, very interesting. And also, yes, a feminist approach. Yes, I 100% agree with that. So yes, I think a lot of these responses are very much tying into our intergenerational, interdisciplinary, and human security approach that values equality and solidarity and looking forward into the future. Yeah. All right. So I think that was a great exercise to get thinking. And even if you didn't answer, then at least you could think a little bit about what the woman, peace, and security agenda means to you. So I'll stop sharing now, and then I will move on to the closing remarks. So I would really like to thank our amazing speakers and our partners of this event. You have all been really, really amazing, and this event would not have been possible without you. And I would also like to thank my colleagues at Youth Fusion, especially Mazan Nuzan, who have all supported this event in various ways. And lastly, I would also encourage you to check out our Youth Fusion website, especially our podcast, where we have some really great episodes out. Ajurim herself has just finished her podcast series on nuclear collateral damage, which is also in the chat box, I believe, where she interviews victims of nuclear testing. And I also have one out recently where I interviewed Renata Hesmandalakwa from Unidia, one of Maria's colleagues. And we talked about the Global South, gender and disarmament. And I will also share the link to that here for those of you who might want to check it out. And with that, I would like to say thank you to everyone once again. I think events like these are really, really important. And I can just see how we've all really connected here today and shared our thoughts. And also feel free to email any of us at Youth Fusion or any of our partnering organizations to see if we can collaborate in any way. I don't know if Alan would like to chip in with some closing remarks, as he was a big part of our technical support. So a big thank you to Alan from PNND as well.
So thank you very much, Michaela. I'm Alan Ware, Global Coordinator of Parliamentarians for Nuclear Non-Proliferation and Disarmament, and we're very happy to have partnered with Youth Fusion and the other organisations on this. We have done events on this day in previous years, of course, and they've all been a little bit different, and everyone's brought something new to it. So thank you very much. PNND has a program on gender, peace and security, which is taking forward these ideas of both and the range of things which have been talked about, of inclusion, but also of changing the nature of security to ensure that it is one that puts humans first, common security, inclusiveness. So it's not just about involving women. There's also a role for men to play. But of course, our role is much more as a supportive and to ensure that the voices of women, the ideas are brought to the fore, because that will ensure that we do have exactly the ideas that come out in that lovely little infographic that everyone contributed to, a sustainable, inclusive peace and security for the future. So thank you very much. We have recorded this. We will make the recording available for those who want to go over it again. And we look forward to keeping engaged with everybody. Thank you very much.
Right, so thank you all very much again, and thank you, Ellen. I've also put our, Ajurim, Ellen, and myself's email in the chat box. So I'll just leave the event open for a minute more, just to give everyone time to look through the links and everything in the chat. But otherwise, thank you, and I'll officially close the event now.